Very good morning, dear children. This video is for class 10 science, chapter number 6 life processes, and this is lecture number 7. So as we have covered our complete chapter, today we are going to have our summary lecture. So here is the content that we are going to cover in this lecture. First, we'll understand what are life processes and their dependency on each other. Then later, nutrition and its types. Then we'll understand the nutrition in plants and in humans. Then second life process, which is respiration in humans. Further in the lecture, we'll understand the transportation in plants and transportation in humans. So here finally, we are going to see the human circulatory system and the life process which comes at the end of the chapter is excretion in humans. So we are going to see that how our kidneys work, how they filter the blood. So let's get started. So before starting the chapter, the first question that comes in our mind is, what are life processes? So children, life processes are the basic functions performed by an individual living organism to maintain its life. We can identify the livings and non-livings by breathing, their movement, growth, nutrition, respiration, reproduction, transportation and excretion. So all these are the activities which are done in a living organism. But here among all we have the four basic life processes without which an individual living organism cannot maintain its life. So for the sustenance of its life, these four processes are necessary. And we know that all these four processes are interrelated. One cannot be completed without the occurrence of other. Like nutrition. With the help of nutrition, we are getting the energy. We are getting the nutrients from the food. But the food cannot be digested without the oxidation. So if we want oxygen, then there is a need of the respiration process. So respiration is helping the nutrition to occur. And in both these things, there is a need to transport either the gases or the food nutrients or the raw materials inside the body. So there is a need to transport the materials inside the body. And if the activities are going on inside the body, then for sure waste will also develop. And there comes the need of excretion. So what will happen? That the removal of all the kind of waste will happen with the help of excretion and transportation both. So that's how we can say that all these processes, life processes, are interrelated and they are very important. So let us study them one by one. So let us discuss the first life process, that is nutrition. So what is nutrition? First we should understand that nutrition is the process of taking food and utilizing it. Further, this can be divided into two parts, autotrophic and heterotrophic. So nutrition is a process, and what we obtain during this process? Nutrients. Nutrients like amino acids, fatty acids, glucose. So these are the nutrients. So nutrition can be of two types, autotrophic and heterotrophic. Auto means by itself, trophic means food, feeding. That means the organisms which can feed themselves by their own. That is called autotrophic nutrition. For example, green plants, because they make their own food. Then we have heterotrophic nutrition. Hetero means others and trophic means feeding. So the living organisms which are dependent on other living or non-living organisms for their feeding are called heterotrophic nutrition. In this type of nutrition, we have further three categories: saprophytic, parasitic and holozoic nutrition. As each living organism is having a adaptability to a particular kind of food they take, and that's why they have been divided into three categories: saprophytic, parasitic and holozoic. Saprophytic nutrition is the type of heterotrophic nutrition in which the organism takes the dead and decaying matter as their food. For example, the fungi, mushrooms. Then we have second type, parasitic nutrition. In this type of nutrition, the organism is dependent on some other organism for its living, for its feeding. But in this, the organism absorbs the nutrients from some other living organism, but it do not kill the host. For example, lice, leeches, tapeworm, Cuscuta. Then we have holozoic nutrition. Holozoic nutrition is a type of heterotrophic nutrition in which the living organisms, they take the food as a whole. That means they have the capability to digest the food. So they intake the food of any kind of any variety and they digest them in their body. For example, human beings, most of the animals. So after studying the types of nutrition, we should understand the nutrition in plants, that is autotrophic nutrition, that how autotrophic nutrition takes place, and later on we'll understand the heterotrophic nutrition. So first, nutrition in plants. As we all know that green plants, they make their food with the help of the process called photosynthesis. For this process, they need some raw materials. And what are the raw materials here? CO2 and water. CO2 is absorbed through the stomata present in the leaf, generally on the lower surface of the leaf. H2O, water. Water is absorbed by the roots, which is available in the near the roots. So it is absorbed through a process called diffusion. And it is reaching the leaves because the food is prepared in the leaves, because they contain the chlorophyll in it, which traps the sunlight. So chlorophyll traps the sunlight and the CO2. First what happens? H2O breaks down, and then this chemical energy is reacting with the sunlight trapped in the chlorophyll, and sunlight converts into chemical energy in the form of carbohydrates. So here what is happening? There are three main steps of photosynthesis. First, absorption by chlorophyll. Chlorophyll will absorb the sunlight and H2O is absorbed through the roots, and it reaches to the leaves through the xylem tissue, because xylem tissue is having the tubular structures, vessels or tracheids, which help in moving the water towards the leaves. Then we second step is light energy converts into chemical energy. Third step is that CO2 reduces to carbohydrates or the glucose. Here in this process, oxygen and water vapors are the byproducts. So this is removed with the help of stomata only. H2O, water vapor. So water vapor is also removed by the process of transpiration. We'll study it later in this lecture only. But here you should understand that this is a byproduct formed in the process photosynthesis, and this is removed by the process called transpiration. Now let us understand the nutrition in human beings, because in the plants the photosynthesis is the process in which they make the food in the form of carbohydrates or the glucose, and then they store it in the form of starch. Then here what happens in the nutrition in human beings? Because we get the nutrition from the food that we eat. That means the food that we are taking in is the source of energy for us. But it will not give instant energy as soon as we eat it. So there is a need to digest or to oxidize this food to get the energy from it. And what is that part or what is that system inside the human beings which performs this function is called as human digestive system. Human digestive system is composed of alimentary canal. Alimentary canal is a tubular structure having different shapes and properties at different places, and it consists of oral cavity, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, and then anus. Along with all these parts, they have some kind of muscles also which help in the motion of food throughout this alimentary canal. So let us understand with the help of a diagram or a flow chart that how the food is getting digested in the oral cavity. The digestive system of humans. Here, first we should have a look at all the parts of the digestive system. So here we have the diagram of human alimentary canal. So this figure shows that which part is placed where. The alimentary canal starts from the oral cavity. You can also call it as buccal cavity or your mouth. Then esophagus is a tubular structure which transfers the food from oral cavity to the stomach. So stomach is a bag-like structure which is present in the abdominal cavity, and it is further connected to the small intestine, which is a narrow tubular structure. It is very long, but it is coiled in a very small space. Small intestine is further connected with the large intestine, and then at the end we have the anus, through which we excrete the unused food. Now here you can see that here we have some another parts also, like liver. Then we have the gallbladder. We also have the pancreas. So why these all parts are shown in the digestive system? Because they help in the digestion of food by secreting some juices which help in digesting the different kinds of food. Now let us understand the digestive system in the form of a flow chart. So at the first we have the oral cavity. What is present in the oral cavity? Here we have the teeth and tongue, which provide the uniform texture to the food, and also this is the physical change which is happening with the food. But here chemical changes are also happening. Small portion of digestion is taking place here in the oral cavity. And what is done? We have the saliva, which moisten the food and also digest the carbohydrates into the simpler sugars. So carbohydrates get digested into because saliva is having an enzyme which is called as amylase. Amylase breaks down the carbohydrates into simpler sugar. So this is the work of oral cavity. Then further, when this uniform textured smooth paste of food is transferred to the esophagus. Esophagus is just a tube-like structure. So what happens that with the help of circular muscles, the food comes down. And what is that movement called? Peristaltic motion. So because of that peristaltic motion, the food comes down in the esophagus and enters into the stomach. So we know that stomach is a bag-like structure like this, and it is extendable, and the walls of the stomach are having the gastric glands. So gastric glands, they secrete three things. One, HCl. Second, pepsin. And third, mucus. So what is the role of all these things? HCl kills the bacteria and also facilitates the working of pepsin enzyme. Pepsin digests the proteins in the stomach. Mucus, it creates the inner lining on the inner wall of the surface of stomach so that HCl will not burn it. So here only the digestion of proteins is happening because carbohydrates cannot be digested here as acidic medium is provided. Now from here, from stomach to small intestine. Small intestine is 8 to 9 or 12 meters long, but they are arranged in coils, and that's how they take a very small space. And most of the digestion of the food takes place in the small intestine only. And how the food enters into the small intestine? Through the sphincter muscles. So what happens in the small intestine? Small intestine gets the secretion from liver and pancreas both. So it is having trypsin, then we have lipase and amylase. All these are coming from the pancreas. Then we have the liver secretions. What are they? Bile juices and bile salts. Then further we have intestinal juices. Intestinal juices are peptidases, sucrases, maltases, fructases. Now what is the function of all these enzymes or these secretions? So the first function is performed by the bile salt. What is done by the bile salt? It removes the acidity of the food which comes from the stomach because it is acidic in nature. So no other digestion can take place if the acidic medium sustains. So bile salts, they remove the acidity of the food, they neutralize that effect, and bile juices, they break down the big globules of the fats that we eat in the form of our food. Only so what is done by the bile juices? They are emulsifying fats. Because only then lipase can work on the emulsifying fats and convert them into the fatty acids. So lipase works on emulsified fat and get converted into fatty acids, which is the final digested form of the fats. Then as bile salts, they have done their work. They have removed the acidity. So now amylase can work on the carbohydrates. And carbohydrates which are now in a simpler form like maltose, sucrose, fructose, or then they are further reacting with intestinal juices like fructases, maltases, and they finally convert it to glucose. So glucose, like carbohydrates, digestion is done, fat digestion is done. Now what is left? We are left with the trypsin. So what is done by the help of trypsin? Trypsin works on the proteins present in the food because only a small portion of the proteins get digested into the stomach. So most of the digestion that takes place here the proteins, they convert into peptides and peptones. Further, peptides and peptones, they both are reacting or they are worked by the peptidases which are present in the intestinal juices, and finally they convert into amino acids. So we have amino acids, fatty acid and glucose. These are the nutrients which are absorbed by the microvilli, which is a finger-like projection on the inner wall of the small intestine, and it creates a large surface area to absorb the nutrients from the food, and it has the abundance of capillaries of blood. So from here, the absorbed nutrients are directly added to the blood. So when the blood will move throughout the part of the body, then the nutrients will be supplied to all the cells of the body. So this is how the nutrition takes place in human beings. So finally, blood is helping in transporting the food throughout the body. Just have a look that you can make a flow chart like this. I mean, you can make more wonderful than me, but yes, you can try this to explain the human digestive system. So children, humans were a little complex organism, but amoeba is a single cell organism. So let us see how nutrition takes place in the amoeba. Amoeba is not having actually a definite shape. It is having a nucleus, it's just a single cell, and all the other organelles are present in the cell. Now, wherever it finds its food, it increases its size in that direction. And what happens? That it creates finger-like or capturing area on the food. It captures the food like this. So when the food is completely trapped by the pseudopodia of the amoeba, then the food is taken in. Okay? And then what happens? When the food is taken in, the nutrients are absorbed in the cell, and the food, which is waste now, is excreted by the cell. So here, in both the kinds of nutrition, whether it is in the single cell structure or a complex structure, then there are 4 steps which are followed in the nutrition. First, ingestion of food. As you can see in amoeba clearly, but in the human beings, ingestion is done with the help of oral cavity. Then we have the digestion. Digestion takes place partly in mouth, then in stomach, and then in small intestine. Then absorption. Absorption takes place in small intestine only. Then we have the egestion. Egestion is the removal of the waste food material or the unabsorbed food particles in the solid form out of the body. So these are the 4 steps in the process of nutrition. Now let's just quickly do the respiration, which is second life process. So basically we need energy, and this energy will come out from the nutrition that we have taken in from the food. But this food has to get oxidized with the help of oxygen. From where we'll get the oxygen? From the respiration. So now let us see what is respiration. So respiration is basically a process of breaking down complex food with the help of oxygen, in which the large amount of energy is released. Respiration is mainly of 2 types, aerobic and anaerobic. Aerobic means in the presence of oxygen, anaerobic means in the absence of oxygen. In all kind of organism, whether they are single structure or they are multicellular organisms, what happens that glucose, which is a 6 carbon molecule, gets converted into pyruvate, which is a 3 carbon molecule, and along with it a small amount of energy is released. Now this is not the complete digestion of the food or oxidation of food. Further, this pyruvate can obtain any of these 3 pathways, whether it can convert or it can perform some reactions for the release of energy in the absence of oxygen. For example, yeast, where pyruvates get converted into ethanol and carbon dioxide along with the release of energy. Pyruvate can also convert into lactic acid and energy in the lack of oxygen. This happens in the case of generally it happens in the muscle cells when we are doing some hyperactivities, some overactivities, then lack of oxygen is there in our body, in the muscles. Then it can also get converted or finally oxidized in the presence of oxygen, which happens in the case of mitochondria, carbon dioxide, water and energy. And this energy released is very large in amount. So that's why this is the more sufficient way of oxidizing the food. Now, what happens with this energy? What we are doing with this energy? This energy is taken up by the ADP present in the cell, and here as an endothermic reaction takes place, and ATP, which is called as currency energy of the cell. So here cells are storing the energy in the form of ATP. So they will use it whenever it is required. So we have plants and animals both. Those who need oxygen for oxidation of their food. Now, plants, they need carbon dioxide as a raw material, so they take it with the help of stomata, and then oxygen is produced as a byproduct, which is removed by the help of stomata only. Now, what about animals? There can be various kinds of animals like terrestrial and aquatic. So, the terrestrial animals, they take the oxygen which is present in the atmosphere, and the aquatic animals like fish, they take the oxygen which is dissolved in water. So dissolved oxygen is less as compared to the atmospheric oxygen, so they need to have a faster breathing rate so that they can compensate the amount of oxygen in their body. Now let us see that how respiration occurs in humans. Respiration is having main 4 steps. First, breathing, external respiration, internal respiration, and cellular respiration. Now, what do we mean by breathing? Breathing is inhaling oxygen and exhaling CO2. It is having its own mechanism that when we create more volume inside the body, inside the lungs, then the inhalation process is done. That means we intake the gases inside our body, and when the pressure is more inside the body, then exhalation process takes place. The breathing mechanism has been told in the respiration lecture. If for the details you can watch that also. Then we have the external respiration. External respiration is the process in which exchange of gases occurs between the blood and lung. How is the blood present in the lungs? It is in the form of capillaries. So lungs, which part of the lungs comes in the contact of blood? It is the alveoli. We'll see the structure of the respiratory system of humans. Then we have the cellular respiration. So finally, we have internal respiration. Internal respiration means the oxygenated blood gives the oxygen or the exchange of gases between blood and the tissue cells. Now the cell has got the oxygen. What it is going to do with that? The cell was already having the nutrients which came from the food. It has got the oxygen now. So what happens now? The food gets oxidized and it produces energy, which is used up by the cells to produce ATP. This is finally that we want from the respiration process. Now, what are the features of a respiratory organ? There should be a large surface area, thin and permeable membrane, or their walls should be very thin so that gas exchange can easily take place, and there should be enough supply of blood. So respiratory organs, basically the lungs are performing the gas exchange, but there are more parts in it which comes under the respiratory organs. The respiratory system starts from the nose, then we have pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi and bronchioles, and finally the bronchi that enters into the lungs, and from here they further gets divided into alveoli. So here actually the gas exchange takes place. Now let me show you the diagram of it. That here I am showing you the diagram of the respiratory system of humans. So here is the nose, and with the help of the nostrils, the air comes into the nasal cavity. Then we have the common path for air and food both, which is called as pharynx. Then we have the larynx, which is also called as voice box. It is just above the trachea. Here we also have the epiglottis, which is a cartilaginous flap which covers the windpipe or the trachea. So this is the trachea. You can see the C-type rings on it, and they avoid the collapsing of the trachea because it is a tubular structure. So it can collapse when the air is sucked out of the body. But these C-shaped rings, they protect it from collapsing. Then trachea divides into bronchi, and bronchi further divide into bronchioles. Primary, secondary and tertiary bronchioles. And then finally, the bronchioles are dividing into alveoli or alveolus is the singular one. So what is alveoli? Alveoli is basically a small grape-like structure or a small balloon-like structure. It is having a just single-celled layer, and it is having abundant supply of blood capillaries around it. So here the gas exchange takes place. What is the mechanism? Breathing. Inhalation happens when we expand the lungs, then volume increases, pressure decreases, so air moves inside from higher pressure to lower pressure. Then exhalation, the lungs contract, volume decreases and pressure increases, so air moves out of the body. Then we have a muscular diaphragm which divides the abdominal and chest cavities both, and it helps in the mechanism of breathing, or it helps in breathing. Now we have the alveoli. So this is just a bunch of alveoli which was present in the lungs. So these ball-like structures, as you are seeing, just one if I take, then they will look like something this. That this is the alveoli having the blood capillary around it. The red dots are the RBCs which are having the hemoglobin in it. So here what happens, that RBC is having the hemoglobin which can attach oxygen with it because it is having the affinity for oxygen. This blood capillary is carrying the deoxygenated blood. So CO2 goes in, O2 comes out. So this is the actual gas exchange which is taking place in the lungs, and this is called as external respiration. Now the oxygenated blood comes out of the lungs, pumped by the heart, and goes to all the parts of the body. Now what happens? This RBC, when it reaches to the blood cells, again the gas exchange takes place. That oxygen goes to the cells, CO2 comes in the blood. Then this oxygen is used to oxidize the food, and here we have some release of energy which is used by that cells to convert the ADP into ATP, and this is the final requirement of the respiration. So this process of exchange of gases between CO2 between cells and blood is called the internal respiration, and the uses of this oxygen for the formation of ATP is the cellular respiration. Now here two things are happening. The transport of gases, O2 is 97% transported with the help of hemoglobin. Then when the oxygen gets attached with the hemoglobin, it is called as oxyhemoglobin, and 3% oxygen is also transported with the help of plasma of blood. Then we have CO2. So 5 to 7% of the CO2 is dissolved in plasma, 70% is removed or transported with the help of bicarbonates, and 23% is also transported with the help of hemoglobin. And that's why the hemoglobin, when it attaches CO2 with it, it is called as carboamino hemoglobin. The next topic is transportation. Transportation is the next life process that we are going to do. Now, which is that part of the body, or which is that tissue which is performing the function of transportation? So children, it is the blood flowing inside our body that performs the function of transportation. It transports nutrients absorbed from the food to the cells. It transports oxygen in the process of respiration. It also transports the waste materials, for example CO2 removed out with through the exhalation, but it has been transported by the help of blood. Now, what is blood? Blood is a fluid connective tissue. Blood is composed of two parts, liquid and particle. Liquid is the plasma and particle component are RBCs, WBCs and platelets. RBCs contain hemoglobin, WBCs are known for immune system, and platelets, they help in clotting the blood. If we talk about the plasma, then what is plasma? It's 50 to 60% of the total content of blood is the liquid. That liquid part of the blood is called the plasma. In this, 90 to 99% is there water, and remaining 1% is some proteins or some hormones. Now, the blood cells. RBCs, they have hemoglobin that helps in the transportation of oxygen and CO2. Here we have some functions of blood. For example, blood helps in transport of O2 and CO2. It transports nutrients absorbed by the food, transports the waste. Chemical coordination is also performed by the blood because it is having some hormones in it. It also has the WBCs, which fight against the infection. It also maintains the water balance of the body. It regulates the temperature of the body. It maintains the pH of the body and the pressure inside the body. Now let us understand that how the heart functions. I am just telling you the basic functions. Here not actual diagram is shown. You can see it in the book. Here what is the diagram of heart, and what is heart actually? Heart is the pumping organ of the body which pumps the blood inside the body. And blood, we all know that what are the functions, just now we have discussed. So heart is having 4 chambers in it. It is being divided into 2 parts, and these 2 parts are further divided into 2 parts. So these are the left parts and this is the right part. So left and right. So here we have the atrium on both the sides. Lower sides are ventricles. Now these are just 4 chambers of the heart. But if we have the lungs here, then one artery which is called as pulmonary vein. Pulmonary vein. Pulmonary related to lungs. Vein because it is having thin walls. So pulmonary vein comes into the left atrium. Then blood, this left atrium contracts and then it goes into the left ventricle. From here the blood is passing into the aorta. This aorta is the biggest artery from where it keeps on dividing and it keeps on arteries which are going to the individual organs of the body. Further, the arteries also divide into the capillaries where the gas exchange takes place between the capillaries and the cells of the organ. And then the arteries, they again combine together as they are carrying the deoxygenated blood now. So they make the veins, and then further veins are connecting and they are making just vena cavas, and the deoxygenated blood comes into the right atrium. From the upper part of the body also vena cava comes, which is called as superior vena cava. So just a brief introduction of how the heart works I am giving you here. Then from here what happens, that right atrium again contracts and the blood comes into the right ventricle. Here we have the tricuspid valves, here we have the bicuspid valves. So they make the flow of the blood only in one direction. Now here there is a need of having valves in the superior or inferior vena cavas, because here the blood is not coming with the pressure. So there is a possibility that blood will move back into the organs, which is not required. So there are various valves in the vena cava so that backflow of the blood can be stopped. Now from here, pulmonary artery takes the blood to the lungs for again exchange of gases. So this is how the heart actually functions. These 2 atria, they contract together. These 2 ventricles, they contract together. So when these two are contracting, the blood is coming into the ventricles. When ventricles are contracting, the blood is going into the aorta and the pulmonary artery. So arteries are carrying the oxygenated blood and veins are carrying the deoxygenated blood. Then we have, so these are the types of blood vessels: arteries, veins and blood capillaries. Capillaries are even smaller than the arteries and veins. Where the actual transport of gases takes place, then you have noticed that here heart is entering the heart, the blood is entering the heart twice, here and here again. So in one complete cycle, the heart is entering into the heart twice, and that's why this circulation is called as double circulation. Double circulation is further divided into two parts: systematic and pulmonary. Systemic circulation is the circulation in which the oxygenated blood flows through the heart. That means start from the lungs, pulmonary veins, left atrium, left ventricle and then aorta, and till the capillaries where the gas exchange takes place. Here we have the systemic circulation, then from the veins, then right atrium, right ventricle and the lungs, till the lungs. This is called the pulmonary circulation. Most of the animals, they have single circulation also. Why? Because they have two chambers of heart. For example, fish. So what they do, only deoxygenated blood passes through them, and then just after that they are providing the blood to the gills where the blood gets oxygenated, and further it is being distributed in the all body parts. So no double circulation is taking place here. Some important points regarding arteries and veins. Arteries, they carry oxygenated blood, have a high pressure. They take the blood away from the heart towards the body parts. Veins, they carry deoxygenated blood and they take the blood from the body parts towards the heart. It is having walls, and arteries are not having walls. The walls of the arteries are thick and narrow because here the blood is under pressure. Veins are having thin walls and they are wider in opening. Capillaries are incorporating both the things, arteries and veins both, because the arteries further divided into capillaries, and then capillaries, when they lose all the oxygen from them, they become the venules, and further they combine and form the veins. One more transported system is there inside our body, that is called lymphatic system. Lymph is the yellowish liquid which contains plasma and white blood cells only. So here, from where this liquid has come, when the blood is going into the capillaries in the cells, then what happens that during the exchange, some plasma, proteins and blood cells, they go into the intercellular space. So that fluid is called as lymph. And what are its functions? Makes the immune system, transports the digested fats, absorbs the excess fluid from the extracellular space and gives back to the blood. Now let us understand the transportation in plants. So there are three things to be transported inside a plant: gases, food and water and minerals. So gases like CO2 and O2, they are both being transported with the help of stomatas. Food, which is prepared in the leaves but has to be transported in different parts of the plant. So this process of transporting the food into various parts of the plant is called as translocation. And this process takes place with the help of phloem tissue. So as these tissues are helpful, they have the vacuoles in them, and these vacuoles are having the small openings or tube-like structures in which the food goes, and it is reaching to the particular place wherever it is required. or wherever the plants wants to store their food. Then one more transportation is there, that is H2O and minerals. So as we all know that H2O and minerals both are present in the near the roots of the plant. They are in the soil. So they can be transported with the help of a process called diffusion. But if the tree is very long, then how the water and the minerals will reach to the tip of the tree? So that's the process, or to create the suction or to create the effect of a pump inside the tree. Although we have the xylem tissue, which is having the tubes or tube-like structures like tracheids, which will help in moving the water into in one direction only. But here one process occurs called as transpiration, because this process creates a suction in the tree. And what is this process? This is the loss of the water from the surface of the leaves. So when the water is lost by the surface of the trees, then the water moves in the xylem tissue and reaches to the tip of the tree. This is how the mineral and water both are being transported. Now the next topic that we are going to study is excretion. We'll see the excretion in human beings and excretion in plants. So first, excretion in human beings. We all know that during the metabolic activities or various activities which are going on inside the body, there are a lot of waste materials produced. Here we can have the toxic waste, excess of H2O, or the carbon dioxide which is produced during the activities or the respiration process. So we discrete them out of the body with the help of some processes. As we know that the solid food or the unabsorbed food is removed by the large intestine. It is excreted out with the help of large intestine. It is actually the egestion and not the excretion, because here we are removing the solid waste. And in the respiration we are excreting the CO2. So gaseous and solid, both the waste materials have been removed by the process of the digestion and the respiration. Now there are numerous biochemical reactions which are taking place inside the body, which are called as metabolic reactions. And what are these reactions? These are the activities which are performed inside the body for the growth and development of human beings. So they create a nitrogenous waste which can be toxic for us. So there is a need to remove this waste product. So what is excretion? Excretion is the removal of nitrogenous waste from the body of organism is called the excretion. It is different from the egestion. Egestion is the removal of solid waste. So who is performing the function of excretion in the human beings? It's the kidneys. We are having a pair of kidneys. They are bean shaped, reddish brown in color, 10 centimeter approx long, placed in the abdominal cavity, having a weight of approximate 150 grams. And this is how generally a kidney looks like. So let us discuss what are the parts of the kidney. Here I am showing you the complete excretory system of the humans. We have a pair of kidneys, conducting tubes, or you can say the tubes that carry the waste from the kidneys to a storage space. So here we have two pair of kidneys, ureters, urinary bladder, then urethra. What are these functions? Here kidneys are forming urine. So urine formation is the function of kidney. Then transport is performed by the ureters. Storage is performed by the urinary bladder, and excretion, or you can say removal, is done with the help of urethra. Now These two kidneys are having a smaller basic functional and structural unit called nephron. So it is basically the nephron which forms the urine. And how it forms the urine? By the filtration of blood. Now one more thing to tell you, that here we have the supply of the blood also. So aorta is dividing or giving the supply of the oxygenated blood to the kidneys, and the veins are taking out the deoxygenated blood and they are giving it to the vena cava, and further it will reach to the right atrium of the heart. So these are called as renal arteries and renal veins. Renal means related to kidneys. This is a zoomed up view of one kidney. Here we have the thread-like structures or the tubular structures inside one kidney. One kidney is having 1 million of nephrons present in it. Nephrons, the structural and the functional unit of kidneys. So here the nephrons, they are filtering the urine, they are giving them to the collecting ducts, and finally it is converting into one tubule and giving it to the ureter. These are the renal arteries and renal veins. Before we understand the functioning of nephron, let us understand what is urine, or what is that metabolic waste which is being excreted out. So urine is a transparent light yellow colored liquid. It is acidic in nature, having most of the ions, or you can say it is a hypertonic solution. That means it is having more concentration of the waste and the ions compared to blood plasma. Then the chemical composition of urine is 95% water, 5% other waste materials like nitrogen, urea, creatine and creatinine, ammonia, uric acid, oxalic acid, amino acids, some vitamins which are soluble, sulfates, then some ions like potassium, sodium, chlorine, chlorine is also there, calcium, magnesium, iodine, some harmful metals like arsenic and lead, and sometimes glucose also. So now let us study about the nephron. Nephron is the structural and the functional unit of kidney. It is having two parts, Malpighian body and the convoluted tubes. So let us understand them by the help of the diagram. The Malpighian body is having a cup-like structure in which the cluster of blood capillaries is there, like this. So here this is the cluster of blood capillaries, and this cluster is known as glomeruli, and this is called as Bowman's capsule because it is a cup-like structure. Then further this becomes the Malpighian body, and then we have the convoluted tube shapes. So here we'll have some convoluted tubes, coiled structures. Then we have a U-shaped part of the convoluted tube. So this convoluted tube which is near the Malpighian body is known as PCT, or the proximal disc convoluted tube. Then we have this U-shaped tube which is called as loop of Hindley or Hindley's loop. Then again we have the convoluted tubes. This is called as DCT, which is distal convoluted tube, and further these are connecting with the collecting duct which collects the urine from most of the nephrons or many number of nephrons from, and then together they carry the urine and they give it to the ureter. So this is the basic structure of nephron. Now let us understand that how the urine is formed in the nephron. In the formation of urine, there are three main steps. First, ultrafiltration, also called as glomerular filtration. Second, tubular reabsorption, and also called as selective reabsorption. Then third is tubular secretion. I will tell you the meaning of these three processes here itself, and later on we'll understand them with the help of a diagram. So ultrafiltration, ultra means smaller particles. So when the blood comes to the Bowman's capsule, it gets filtered, and the small particles present in the blood, they diffuse into the Bowman's capsule. Now we have the filtrate, which is not only having the waste materials like urea and ammonia, we also have some of the required components of blood, like some ions, some hormones. So they need to be reabsorbed. Now, as we all know, that the nephrons are covered by the capillaries. There are capillaries all around the convoluted tubes. So here, tubular reabsorption or selective reabsorption takes place. Selective, that means the required components of blood that has been by mistake gone into the filtrate, they are reabsorbed by the capillaries present around the convoluted tubes. Reabsorption takes place in all the three parts, the PCTs, loop of Finlay, and DCT also. Then along with the reabsorption, the capillaries are not just reabsorbing the important or the required components from the filtrate, they are also secreting additional waste, which is called as tubular secretion. So here tubular means the capillary function. Now let us understand this all these three steps here in this diagram. You can take a screenshot of this diagram and you can make it in your notebook, so that it will be helpful that in which portion which activities is happening inside the nephron. So here, instead of making the PCTs and DCTs more convoluted, I have shown them straight so that the reabsorption and secretion by the tubules can be shown easily. So let us start with the first process that happens in the Malpighian body. So here, the blood capillaries that come into the Bowman's capsule are called as efferent capillaries or efferent arterioles. So here, the urea and some smaller components, they move into the Bowman's capsule because through the process diffusion. Then the filtered blood that comes out from this arteriole is called as efferent arteriole. Then what happens, that filtrate, it flows down in the PCT. Now here both the things are happening. So this is the portion where the PCT starts, and this is the portion where PCTs are ending. In this portion, tubular secretion and tubular reabsorption both are occurring. Remember, I have not shown the blood capillaries to you. So an arrow outward the tubular structure which I have drawn here is the reabsorption, and the arrow inward is the tubular secretion. So you have to remember this. So what happens in the PCT? You can see that hormones, glucose, amino acid, phosphate and carbonate groups, some ions also like potassium, chlorine, sodium, ascorbic acid, and along with the water. These all things are required for the human body. So they are reabsorbed from the filtrate into the capillaries of the blood. But some of the harmful waste is also secreted inside the nephron structure. And what are they? Drugs, creatinine and ammonia. So these are being secreted, which I have shown with the black color, and the pink colored are reabsorbed ones. So now what happens as we go in the descending loop of Finlay? Descending means going down. So what happens here? That only the water is getting reabsorbed. Nothing else is happening here. But in the ascending loop of Finlay, what happens? Because this descending loop of Finlay was permeable for water only, so nothing else can pass. But here, urea is secreted by the capillaries into the filtrate, whereas some of the ions like sodium, chlorine, calcium, magnesium, potassium, sodium and chlorine, these are reabsorbed in the loop of Henle itself. So here also both the things are happening, secretion and reabsorption. Secretion of urea, reabsorption of important ions. Then further, this is the portion of DCT. What is happening here? Here ammonia is secreted in the filtrate. What else is being secreted? Hydrogen ions. Then what is being reabsorbed? Calcium, sodium, chlorine, carbonate ions. These are getting reabsorbed in the capillaries. But this action is active. That means here active absorption and active secretion is taking place. Now further, when the urine is going into the collecting duct, here also, because the collecting duct is also permeable for water and most of the ions. So H2O is reabsorbed, sodium, chlorine, potassium, carbonate ions, these are further reabsorbed by the capillaries of the blood, and we are left with the waste product only. So this is called the urine. Now this urine, which is collected in the collecting ducts, will go to the ureters, then finally to urinary bladder where it is stored, and through the urethra it is being excreted out of the body. So this is how the complete excretion function happens inside the nephron, or how the urine formation takes place. Just have a screenshot of it so that you can make the diagram later after watching the video. It will be very helpful for you. As I've told you that I'll make one diagram like this for you, so I have thought I'll not provide it in a separate picture. It should be incorporated in the video itself. So here it is. One important term that has been told you in the previous lecture also is called as glomerular filtration rate. That means how much quantity of urine is produced by the two kidneys of our body in 1 minute. This is called as GFR, and this value is about 125 ml per minute or 180 liters per day. So I'm not going to repeat the functions of kidney. You all know that osmoregulation, removal of nitrogenous base, maintenance of pH, maintenance of salt content, removing extra toxic materials, maintaining the blood pressure, hemostasis. So all these are the functions of kidney. But what happens if the kidneys are not properly working? Then dialysis is done. So dialysis is a process in which, because the human kidneys or human excretory system is not performing well, so the blood is purified or filtered in artificially. The blood is taken out from the patient. So if this is the patient, the blood is taken out, passed through a dialyzing fluid, and then goes back to the person again. Now, what is the dialyzing fluid? It is just like our blood, but it is not having the waste materials in it. So when the blood flows into the cellophane tubes, which are there in the box having the dialyzing fluid, cellophane tubes are semi-permeable, so they diffuse the waste material into the dialyzing fluid, and then the blood gets filtered and the blood is given back to the patient. This is also called as artificial kidney. This machine is also called as artificial kidneys, because they are performing the function of kidneys artificially outside the body. This is also called as hemodialysis. Now let us see that how the excretion happens in the plants. We know that here excretion of waste products should be happen. So one waste product is oxygen, which removes which is removed by the stomata. Then H2O, excess water is there, that's why it is being lost, which is the process transpiration. Then metabolic waste is removed by various processes. It can be removed in the form of dead trunk or dead xylem tissues. Now there can be some more methods like release of resin and gums. These are having a commercial value for us. For trees, these are waste. So they are removed from the trunk of the tree. Then we have the waste in the form of dead leaves that fall from the tree, because many of the time what happens that plants, they store the waste either in the vacuoles present inside the tree or in the leaves. So when the lifetime of the leaves is over, then they fall down, and hence the waste material is removed out of the plant. Nowadays it has been being invented that the plant, they also remove the waste or in the form of mist. The waste which is removed in the soil is called as mist, and that is being removed in the soil with the help of roots of the plants. So children, this was the summary of this chapter, which is named as life processes. We have done all 4 life processes. I hope this summary lecture will help you to revise all the concepts that we have done in all the lectures. 6 lectures we have taken for the chapter, and now this is the final one. So in the previous lecture I have given you 3 questions as homework. These 3 questions will be discussed in the online class, but as today's homework you have to do the NCERT exercise, because we have done the in-text questions of this chapter while doing the lectures. So you have to do the NCERT exercise in your notebook. So this is your today's homework. I hope you will do it yourself and do it very neatly. Try to do it by yourself. Do not take the help from anyone else, like from the net and all, because we are here to help you all. Okay, so with this, just thank you all